Hello, and welcome to High Profile. My name's David Ryle, and you might be aware of the fact that for the last couple of years we've done very few new shows, and that I've had guest hosts filling in for me. And there's a reason for that I'll get into, but I would first like to thank my wife, Vicki, for hosting the last show that I really was involved in before I went through my medical procedure with Dr. Gil Stork and his retirement at Cuesta College. And also want to thank Maria Torres and Chuck Shaley for the show that they did on a youth entrepreneur program that's taking place within the school district here in San Luis Obispo. And so I have a lot of thanks to give out because of the coverage that I had on the show while I was down. And if you remember the last show I did with Gil Stork and doing the introduction, and you remember what I looked like then, that happened to be about a week and a half before I got a new liver and kidney. And so a lot of things have taken place. I'm kind of a new me because I get to kid people when they say, "What's new?" I say liver and kidney, and sometimes they don't know what I mean. But anyhow, this is my first show back, and in the process of depending on my faith family, I have met an organization that is I've met a new organization that is a support group that my wife and I were not aware of. In fact, we had even started talking about starting one with the people at Stanford where my transplant took place, only to then mention it to our local kidney doctor about wanting to start one. He goes, "Well, Dave, there's one here in town." And so he got the contact information for me, and I got to meet the Central Coast Kidney Foundation and their president, and have been able to attend 3 meetings since I've learned about them. And I thought, well, what a better way than to come back than to have them be a part of the first show. And so I'd like to introduce you to Pam Hurt and Steve G. Pam is a part of the foundation. Steve is kind of a new member with the group like I am, and he's in a different position than I am. I'm post-transplant, he's pre-transplant, and there's a process that one has to go through when they maybe have a heart, lung, liver, kidney need for transplant. And so I would like to welcome Pam and Steve to High Profile, and let's kind of get to the basics of Pam. I know you're the president and you've been involved in this quite a while. In fact, you have a distinction of being on your 3rd kidney, as I understand.
Yes. I joined this group myself when I was first introduced to the situation that I might need a kidney transplant. I, like everybody else, gets this horrible news and they don't know where to turn, who to talk to. It's almost like we feel like lepers all of a sudden because we're not like everybody else anymore. We have special needs. So I had found out through the doctor, my doctor at the time, because he was one of the original people involved in the group when it first started. And it started in 1990, and it was started by dialysis patients and at that time the nursing staff for the dialysis people. It was organized so they could have a little bit of a better communication. If they had issues, they could talk openly about them rather than go home and be upset about it. So that's how it originally started. Everybody was involved. And then through the years, a corporation has bought it, so it's all changed. But our program remains the same. I have been president for probably, well, I think it's 8 years now. And I have seen so much. We have, in our group, we have heart transplants, we have lung, we have liver, kidney, pancreas. I don't think, I know a person, but she doesn't come to the group, but she is an eye transplant. So
wow.
there's a lot of different transplants out there. And our group welcomes them all because we all go through the same gut emotion, feelings, like we don't belong with others in the way we used to. We now have special issues that we have to take care of and monitor and watch. So that's how the group is now. It used to be only kidney transplants and kidney dialysis, but our heart transplant that we have now, she called one time and asked if she could come to the meeting because she said she has the same drugs, she has the same ups and downs, she has the same emotional feels. Could she be part of our group? So we decided at that time to open it up for everybody that might need a transplant, has a transplant, is concerned about a transplant. So that's how that evolved. We are basically still kidneys, but we do have any organs.
Well, I guess I was lucky that I got a kidney so I could halfway fit into the group with you.
We're all lucky because we get kidneys, I'll tell you.
So, Steve, as I understand it, because I've only been at 2 meetings that you've been at, so you're kind of the newbie. I didn't get to be the newbie real long. But why don't you let us know where you're at in the process and what brought you to come and attend the group?
Well, I'm basically in stage 5 kidney disease at this point. So my kidney function's down to eGFR of about 14. And then the doctor recommended I talk to, he gave me the sheet and said basically, if you're on the list, basically you might want to talk to the support group because they might have some ideas, for the issues that you're facing. And they said, as well as dialysis. 'Cause at this point, basically, I'm listed on the donor list. I got listed as of December 25th last year, but I haven't found a match yet, basically. So it looks like my next stage or next thing, I'll probably end up going on dialysis probably before the end of the year at the rate progression of my disease. I have polycystic kidney disease, and it's genetic. So basically, my kidney function is progressively declining, and I expect to be on dialysis basically by the end of the year, unless I get a transplant. So doctor said, well, you should come talk to the support group. They might have some ideas that, and it would help you with what you're going through.
Okay. So unfortunately, to an extent, that's where I unfortunately don't get to be a help to someone like you, because my story is my wife and I went to Angels Camp. The day after we got there, I turned jaundiced, and the doctor of the urgent care sent us to Stanford ER, and I go through there and I get on the transplant list, and 2 days later I get a donor. So I didn't experience a lot of the experience of waiting on a donor list, and I've got a friend who's been on the kidney donor list for 6 years now. So you're going to have some experiences to share that will be new to me because I didn't have to go through the wait period. But it's definitely important to have this support. I know that when I went to the Stanford support group up there, I was the only recipient of a liver. Everybody else was on the list or trying to get on the list. Now, you said you were on the list?
Yes. I was
Okay.
listed as of December 25th in 2018
Okay.
at Stanford, actually, as well.
Oh.
So.
Okay. Well, you'll have a good kidney team up there. At least I can have that in common with you.
Yeah, they said the average wait time basically for someone with my blood type, which is A positive, is 6 to 8 years.
Oh,
In the
boy.
Bay Area, because there's apparently 3 different hospitals basically in the Bay Area that could do transplants.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to be assigned according to those 3 hospitals.
Okay.
But that's not particularly a long wait because people that are O positive are very difficult to match. So they may even have longer
10 years,
waits.
basically.
10.
My brother was
Mm-hmm.
10, close. They said told him close to 10.
Wow.
So
Stephen has an inherited,
Mm-hmm.
that polycystic kidney disease
Right.
is inherited, and we have had a few of them in our group. Actually, the person that started the group
Mm-hmm.
had that, and his daughter, who is now the vice president, also has had polycystic, but she's
Wow.
been transplanted. So
Yeah. And that's, sadly, is also an issue is that a lot of the disease that causes the need for transplants are genetic because having cirrhosis of the liver, of course, automatically people want to say, oh, you must be hitting the bottle too much. And it turned out that no, I've got an alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, which can attack either the liver or the lung. And in my case, it attacked the liver, and really I had a sepsis infection that just took me down. And so I was able, fortunately, to get the transplant. One of my older brothers, he passed away from the same disease I had. He just wasn't able to qualify for the transplant list. And now my oldest brother is starting to have lung issues. So these genetic diseases you have really can play havoc on you.
and my husband passed away of liver disease, and it's like you say, it was not from drinking, and his mother also passed away. So it was a genetic, which is a real sad thing.
Yes, it is.
But the weight for an organ, liver is of course different, but for kidneys, unless you have somebody that is willing to donate or you have family,
Mm-hmm.
it could take a very long time, and a lot of people are not able to wait that long. So we lose a lot of people in the interim, which is a very sad thing.
Yeah. Now, you have this group that you said got started in about 1990, and it meets. How often do they meet?
We meet the first Saturday of every month from 9:30 to 11:30. St. Episcopal's Church in San Luis Obispo. It's on Napomo Street. It's
Okay.
a pretty red church. And it's very informal. Anybody is welcome. We would like to get the word out that we are there. Our advertising is limited. We're always hoping that the doctors of all organs will realize we're there so that they can help their patients. Because we take a load off their back. Because the people that are uncomfortable about having to have a donation, it's a terrible, vast world of knowledge, and there's nowhere they seem to be able to get it. But at our group meetings, they can. They'll find out about the hospitals they can get on, what the medications might entail, some of the mood swings or situations that you might have, your capabilities, even though you have a transplant or are on dialysis, are almost unlimited.
What type of information is available? Because we know Steve has now come and he's looking for information. Do you have guest speakers that come in, and what
We
type
do.
of?
We don't have a particular time allotment. When we have the speakers, we get them whenever we can. But we've had chiropractors for people that are having issues with their bones, their backs. We've had pharmacists that are very helpful to some of the medications that we're taking, when and why we should take them. We've had HICAP, which is a representatives from Medicare come and help us with any forms
Okay.
that we need or explain things. We've had healthcare people come, dietitians, anything that's related to any of our situations that we have.
Okay.
There's a lot.
All right. Well, Steve, with you being new in the group, at least attending 2-3 times, have you already benefited from the attendance?
Yes, basically, because I think there's information that's that I wasn't aware of. Basically, for instance, I think last time I attended, there was a lady that came, basically talked a lot about donations and people that are willing to donate, and what the qualifications were, and how I guess relatives can help that along. Like, for instance, if a loved one is possible candidate or not, basically. So it's kind of interesting, all the criteria required, basically, and explained, why certain types of organs are hard to get and things like that, why there's a long wait. So it was pretty interesting, actually. 'Cause you don't
Okay.
ever hear about that. You think, oh, person donates, why doesn't everyone donate? It's easy to do, but there's certain criteria and certain things that are necessary in order to be eligible as a donor.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, we've come upon our first break, and I appreciate the two of you being here. And so my name is David Ryle. Again, this is High Profile, dealing with the transplant support group that is here in San Luis Obispo. And we'll be back in just a minute. Well, hello, and welcome back to High Profile. We are looking into an area that is now near and dear to me, and that is a transplant support group. And with me are Pam and Steve. And Pam, what I'd like to do is kind of circle back. We were talking about the location and the times we meet. And if you've got a phone number that you could provide, this would be a great place to maybe throw that in.
Yes, we meet at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church on Napomo Street, first Saturday of every month. We're from 9:30 to 11:30. It's very informal. Family is all invited. It's not just the person. Anybody that is going to be helping them. It's very important for caregivers to come because they need to see what they might have to deal with also.
Oh,
And we meet the first Saturday, like I said. We have anywhere from probably about 9 to 25 people. They just show up. We have refreshments, we have coffee. It's for 2 hours. You can get a lot of information in 2 hours. Nobody, you're not obligated to anything. Just
No.
come for your own information because you need to know these things. And I don't know where else you're going to find them. So
Well, and we know
definitely need.
trying to get into a doctor's office
Oh,
anymore is
no.
not an easy task.
Well, unfortunately, the doctors, they're very busy, like you say, you can't get in, but they don't really have time to give you all the information you need. And a for instance would be that if you're going to be on a transplant list, you can be on one in the north, one in the south, like San Francisco versus LA. Some people only think they can be on one list. Not so. There are a lot of people getting transplants out of state now because it's so difficult to get them. So time consuming to get them in the States. There's just a lot of information that you need to take care of your body and do the best you can. I don't know how else you're going to, I don't know how else you're going to make it.
Yeah. So Steve, with you right now on the list at Stanford, have they made any recommendation to you to maybe look at other transplant centers or regions? Because I found out that transplants are almost done by regions. And yes, Pam, California is pretty well booked up.
Not specifically, but I've talked to my brother who's had transplant basically done, and his came from UC Davis, and other people in the support group, as a matter of fact, have mentioned it might be a good idea to look in other areas of California even. Like they specifically said, just like if the more places you're listed, the better, basically. So I was going to probably consider getting listed at UC Davis as well, because theoretically they said the list is shorter there. So you're more likely to get a kidney because there's less population in that area or that region.
Okay.
So.
But you have to make sure your insurance will go there.
And see, that's something that's important that comes up in our meetings, is that I know that the medical program that I had, Medishare, which is not really an insurance, but I found out they're not accepted in any of the big places like Stanford, and as I understand it, they may not even be accepted in some of the local hospitals. So you're right. One of the things you have to do is check to see how good your medical insurance is and where it's accepted, because I have a friend who had liver cancer. Stanford didn't accept his insurance, but UCSF did. So here's almost neighboring hospitals, and one accepted him and one didn't. So yeah, that's a important point. So having the HICAP in, and maybe even having an insurance agent come in and talk would be a good thing. So has that been something, Steve, you've had to worry about yet, or talk about, or
not at this point? Luckily, since I work for the state, hasn't been an issue yet. They've covered everything from Stanford at this point. I haven't tried UC Davis yet, but I'm going to probably check in the next month or so, basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, so you have guest speakers. What is a meeting like when you don't have a guest speaker?
When we don't have a guest speaker, we will have, I would call it almost like a round robin. Like each person will explain some of the difficult issues they've gone through for the month, or and need to know what to do about it. Like a big thing a lot of times is some of their medications reacts strangely to them. And they don't know that it's not normal. So they would bring it up at the meeting, and somebody else would say, yes, that particular one will have a tendency to do that. And you really can't call your doctor and find these things out, unfortunately. So that, again, is why the meeting is important. Even if you just have issues, you're having, things are getting you down, and you're not feeling real good about yourself. We don't like crybabies there, because we've been given a second chance at life, and we're going to take it and run with the ball. And anybody that gets a second chance at life needs to be there. So We won't let you kind of wallow in the mud, because everybody in that group has been through probably the same situation at one time or other. And so we're there to help each other. And they will give you viewpoints on different ways to handle something, or it mostly is to make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I know that not this last meeting, but the meeting before, there was a discussion on some of the inspirational or help you feel good about yourself type of reading and material that is available. And probably the mental aspect is very important, especially for somebody like you, Steve, with being on the beginning side of the process. And, you know, as you say, as you wait, it probably can weigh upon you as you have to wait for the donor to come available. Have they talked to you about some of the options that maybe you have in front of you and trying to find a donor?
Yes. Well, of course, they mentioned dialysis, basically, if I don't get a donor, basically. But they've, with live kidney donation, pretty much, they said the main thing is to get the word out, basically. My doctors mentioned to me even, pretty much. So we have created a Facebook page, basically. That's one way, social media. I've always talked to my cousins about it as well, to try and see if they, you know, would willing to donate. And I think one of them tried. She said she was not a candidate. So it's not, but it's difficult, I guess. Some people find it easy to talk about, you know. Just a stranger talk about, oh, I need a kidney. I mean, but it's hard for me to walk up to someone and say, yeah, would you be willing to donate a kidney? It's not something you generally bring up.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know that the guest speaker we had last time that I hope to have on the next episode that we do of High Profile to talk about donation, she brought a bumper sticker that I've now put on my car about donating your organ here. And don't take your organs to heaven. They don't need them there, or something like that.
Don't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows we need them here.
Yeah, okay.
That was originally when our group first started, and you know, it's just such a stronghold awareness that we still use it.
Yeah, well, it works on a bumper sticker, and that's what we've put on our car. So
there's another issue that Stephen didn't bring up, but if you have relatives, if you have somebody that wants to donate to you, but they can't match you either blood type or for any particular reason, they call them kidney pools. You can donate an organ to John Smith, who lives in New York, if he's in the kidney pool. And then John Smith's wife, who couldn't match him, will donate to hopefully someone like Stephen. So just because you can't match that one person, that does not nullify anything. You can go further. We have a person in our group that did that. She wasn't able to match her husband. She donated to a pool in Los Angeles that her husband, probably about a month later, got a kidney that they had donated there. So there's a lot of different aspects that people aren't aware of. It's not from point A to point B. There's a lot of variances there.
So you almost have a donor chain that takes place.
You do.
Someone donates to B, B donates to a C, C to E, and then maybe E gets to bring it back to A. So very interesting. So let's talk the dialysis. Were you ever on dialysis?
Well, I've been dealing with my situation it's been 25 years, so I've had 3 kidneys. The last one I had was almost 10 years ago, so this seems to be a real taker. Evidently it was a well, it was a perfect match for me. Some of the others, I'm guessing the first one, well, something went wrong. You never know. It doesn't matter. It just didn't work. So I was on dialysis for 3.5 years, got a kidney. It never made it off the operating table. So I went back on dialysis for another 3.5 years, got another kidney, and then that one lasted for 8 years, which kidneys not always last forever. Organ transplants don't always last forever. At that time, it was like, I think 7 to 8 years was average, so I went my lifespan with it. And then that failed, went back on dialysis again for another 3 or 4 years. But the last time I was on dialysis, I was looking at possibly 6 years out because my body had transfusions during the surgeries, and that made my blood more difficult to match.
Oh,
And I did finally get a match way before my time, and they say it was a 100% match. It was a very fluky thing, but it worked, and I feel great. And don't let, if your kidney fails, if your organ fails, there's still hope. And I always like to say, too, that the people with a kidney disease are very lucky. They have dialysis that can support their life. Liver, pancreas, these other, they don't. They have
Right.
a limited time, and that's that. Us kidney people, we're the luckiest of all of them. We can be sustained for a while. So,
okay.
you know, you look up, never down. We're always grateful. Always
Oh, yes.
grateful for what you get.
So, with the group, and one of the reasons to do the show here with you is to help get the word out that this liver or this kidney or transplant support group exists. Is there activities that you do during the year to help kind of get the word out?
Well, we have sent letters to all doctors that deal with organs, be it liver, kidney, lungs, to let them know the group is here, but we haven't really had any response from that. Our own nephrologist group here is very helpful. They are starting to send us some of their patients for knowledge, which is excellent. We used to have booths at farmers market and various places, but unfortunately the price for setting up your table got so expensive, and we're just a little nonprofit group. We can't really afford that. We have to be very careful. So mostly it's letter writing. We do have a transplant team that comes down from Cal Pacific, and I try and meet with them when they're here because they're evaluating patients, and I will go and try and give a little talk to some of the anticipating people, so let them know. But we're listed in the senior citizens booklets, and we used to do in the newspapers, but again, that got expensive. We couldn't carry that out. So we're kind of limited.
Okay. Now, I know the meeting is in San Luis Obispo. How far away do you have people travel to come to the meeting? Because San Luis Obispo is a pretty good sized county.
Yeah.
Steve, where do you come from?
I'm here local in town,
Okay.
San Luis Obispo, so luckily it's not that far.
All right. And I believe you, Pam, come from Atascadero.
I'm Atascadero, but we have people from San Miguel to Santa Maria. So, and that's why we try and keep it in San Luis, so that
Yeah,
hopefully.
it's pretty central. Yeah, I come in from Morro Bay, so we have 3 different cities here represented, and so San Miguel to Santa Maria, that's quite a bit.
Well, I go like to the Santa Maria. They have their dialysis unit down there, and we always send them any of our literature. We invite them to any of our barbecue or our Christmas dinner, we always include them because those patients are just like we are. They're concerned, sometimes unhappy. They need a little
Right.
special in their life too.
Okay. So, well, again, we're hitting our second break here at High Profile, and we hope that those of you listening in or viewing the program are getting some information for yourself, for a family member, or at least getting understanding that not everyone, if they're not functioning fully, may be dealing with an issue and are looking for a transplant. So please give consideration to becoming a donor in any area that is important. And we'll be right back in just a minute. Hello and welcome back to High Profile. We've been talking about, again, a very important topic for a number of people. In fact, I heard during the last campaign when there was a discussion about unionizing the dialysis centers or whatever, there were 66,000 people on dialysis in the state of California. That lets you know, even though 66,000 may be a small drop in the bucket to the millions of people that live in this state, that's still a very significant number of people that are looking for a kidney. And so it's very important that this type of topic is discussed. It's very important to have a support group there for people that are in need, because again, as we've already referenced, it's not just kidneys, but people look for hearts. You probably hear of heart transplants in the news quite often. Liver transplants, which I happen to be one of the fortunate ones that had one. And so, along with kidneys and lungs, there are issues that have to be dealt with, and people need to be aware. You need to be aware in public. And I'm going to throw something in that very important. As being a transplant patient, as Pam is, as Steve is hoping to become, we have to be, for the rest of our lives, on medicine called immunosuppression or anti-rejection drugs. What that means is that our immune system is suppressed, so our natural immune system doesn't attack the foreign object. And even though the liver or kidney is important to the body, it's not the native liver or kidney in the body. And so our natural reaction is we've got to attack this foreign object. And so we're on suppressed medicine to suppress our immune system, which means we can easily get a virus, an infection. And so if people are very cautious around you, it may be because they're a transplant patient that's on medicine. And one of the things that I learned through my process, and actually was taking place at Stanford when I was there last year, is that we had a former recipient of a bone marrow transplant that was on immunosuppression medicine. And they had sepsis. And it took about 10 days for the doctors to figure out what virus was attacking this lady. And it turned out that it was a virus found in some dogs. And at about the same time, there were two articles in the newspaper that showed during about the 2-3 months prior to that, a couple of people in the country passed away because they got a dog virus. And so sadly, when I walk, see dogs, and I used to love to pet them because I'm a dog lover. However, I don't know, the owner of the dog doesn't know if that dog has the virus. And the owner of the dog looking at me may not know that I'm on anti-rejection immunosuppression medicine. And dog saliva can be fatal to me. That wouldn't be fatal to them, my wife, kids that the dog may want to go play with. So sometimes if you run into a person who is not really excited about a dog being close to them, give it some thought. Maybe there's a reason that they don't want this dog. So if there's a leash law, please abide by that and don't let your dog just run around, because all it takes is a lick on an open wound and you've possibly introduced a fatal virus. And so we that are recipients of transplants do ask that you be considerate, because you just don't know. You're looking at Pam, you don't know that she needs or has had a transplant. And when Steve gets to have a transplant, after he goes through recovery, he's going to look just like Steve looks right now. And people are telling me I look like I did 3 years ago. And so you don't know, but understand, we have to be sensitive to our environment for the rest of our lives, because we get to take medicine for the rest of our lives. So anyway, getting back to our support group, I'm sorry I got on a soapbox there, but it's important for people to understand.
Yes, it is.
You know, Steve, you're lucky that the moment you can still pet a dog, but once you go on immunosuppression medicine, what you get to do for pretty much the rest of your life, things change.
But the payoff is still good.
Oh yes, payoff is good because I still get to be there, and my wife thinks it's wonderful because she still gets to pester me. So anyway, as we've been looking at this, why don't we kind of circle back, and again, when does the group meet?
The group meets the first Saturday of every month. If there happens to be a holiday, I will have a raise of hands to see if they want to meet or not. And oddly enough, they usually still do want to meet. So it's the first Saturday of every month, 9:30 to 11:30, St. Stephen's Episcopal Church on Napomo Street in San Luis Obispo. And I have myself and another person as a contact. If you need some information, I will give you my phone number, but not hers. I'm at 805-550-1376. I'll help you with anything I can help you with in regards to meetings, transplants, information, whatever I can do for you, I will.
Okay, that's good. And again, having Steve in the group, where are you at in the process? and what brought you to us?
I'm at stage 5 kidney disease, which is the very last stage, pre-dialysis basically, and my kidney function's down at about 14% roughly. I'm listed on the transplant list, and I predict, or the doctors are saying, probably by the end of the year I'll have to either get a transplant or be on dialysis.
Okay. And so you're coming to get information and to learn and to build a network of support.
Correct. Yes, there's a lot of information that you don't hear from the doctor, ins and outs, basically about just daily living and learning about various other things that are the practical side of things.
Yeah.
So,
But could I add in here, there are 3 different kinds of dialysis, and it's to Steve's benefit to be at the group and find out and talk to people who have been on which ones, so he can kind of know in advance where he's going with this.
Okay.
Because that's very important.
Okay. Now, during our last break, we talked a little bit about a living donor is an option. It doesn't have to be a cadaver that we have to hope for to find a match, but it can be someone living, especially with the kidney, but the liver, there's also an option there.
I'm not real familiar on the liver. We've had a couple of liver transplants. I always kind of understood that you could get a portion of the liver, and I'm not real familiar with that.
Okay. Well, that is true. Now, I happen to be in the position where liver transplant wouldn't work. That's where you get a donor, they take a portion of that person's liver, transplant it, and the livers can regenerate. But kidneys, everybody has 2 kidneys.
God gave us 2 kidneys, so you could donate 1.
So you could donate 1. So Steve's position, he can take a liver or a kidney from someone that is willing to donate, or someone who sadly has passed away but has a good kidney. And that's something we haven't talked about. Is there, in your discussion that you've had or in your experience, a discussion of quality of an organ? A quality of a kidney that maybe you can get? Because you've kind of indicated you had a bad one and then you've had 2 good ones.
Well, the transplant centers themselves have their rules on what qualifies as a match and what does not. So it's not really good to say, but to be really honest with you, transplant hospitals like to keep their numbers high. They want to look good. And so if they think that it's not going to work, they probably are not going to give you a transplant. They don't want their numbers to drop. So you might can get a transplant somewhere else, out of state, a different hospital. There's more avenues available, but it's a process that people just really don't understand.
Yeah. And of course, because I had the liver also, I don't know how easy, quote unquote, a kidney transplant would be if it was just by itself. I know with the liver, it definitely takes a lot longer to recover. And,
Well, you know, the recovery and all that, I'm not familiar with yours versus mine. But again, kidney people have dialysis. We have a fallback. We're lucky. Somebody like a liver or a heart, I often think about, I think we've had 3 or 4 heart recipients in our group, and that's really scary to me. If they have any little problems, I get quite concerned about them because that's pretty detrimental, I'd have to say.
yeah.
And we're lucky. Of course, we're all lucky to get transplants.
Oh, yeah, to get that second chance. Yeah.
Yes.
So I was going to say, basically, one other thing they've done studies, pretty much interestingly enough, and it turns out that live kidney donations or live kidney transplants tend to last longer than
Right.
cadaver ones. So yet another reason if you're considering a donation of an organ, basically, especially a kidney, then there's advantage to that. So.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Thank you, Steve. Have they talked to you about when they transplant, are they replacing a kidney or are they going to basically graft in a kidney?
Well, in my situation, they normally, with a kidney transplant, they normally just insert the kidney in your body, place it in a different location. But since I have polycystic kidney disease, the kidneys tend to grow very large in size. And so my preference is that for them to actually remove the diseased kidney and place it in that location.
Okay.
My brother had that situation. They couldn't fit the kidney in there, so they had to take it out. And that's probably what will happen with me, I suspect, the same thing.
Okay. So, because that is one of the things I learned last year in my process, is that they prefer adding the kidney in because they're saying it's not as traumatic on the body as taking one out and replacing it.
Well, from the way I understand it, a kidney that is dying, say like in my case, my two, they just shrivel up, and from what I understand, they become about the size of a walnut. They leave them there because it's not so traumatic. In my situation, where they left them, but they put one of my new kidneys in the right side, one of my new kidneys in the left side, and they were going to put the third kidney in the center. So we got a lot of room down there per se. But we only need one kidney.
Yeah.
One good kidney. is all
One
you
good
need.
kidney. Now, is there an age range that you deal with in the support group? What's your youngest member? What's your oldest member?
You know, that's a very, very interesting question because I think our youngest member, was about 5 years old, and his mother had donated to him. And it's been many years now, but from what I understand, he had that kidney for a very long time, but he got valley fever, and that took his kidney, so he was in search of a new one. And the mom called me, and she was frantic. She wanted it ASAP, and so I advised her to check out of state. I mean, and then the oldest was, I think, probably about 80-ish. That's not receiving a kidney at that age. But if you have a donor, and if the doctor agrees to put it in, and you have nothing wrong with your body, I don't see where it matters.
Yeah. Well, Pam, Steve, I appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts and getting the information out that this transplant support group is here in San Luis Obispo, and hopefully we get the word out and more people talk about it. And of course, we wanted highly recommend that you get that little dot to put on your California driver's license that indicates that you're willing to be a donor, especially if, unfortunately, something has happened to you or you're in the hospital and you don't make it. Or if you're in the hospital and you've got a good kidney and they know that they need one, that you're willing to donate. Anyway, on behalf of Steve and Pam and my producer John Kurt, I'm again David Ryle, and we're glad you've been with us on High Profile.